Hey guys, it's Phoebe. I hope you're all safe and well. Okay, so did anyone watch AD's Patreon? It was mainly about Nicole Kessinger and that photograph of her at the concert. Well, I say the photograph of her. I certainly don't believe that is Nicole Kessinger. Absolutely no way. And she's got sunglasses on, that lady. How can you even begin to compare somebody's face when maybe a third of it is covered by sunglasses? Really? Anyway, I don't believe that was a photograph of Nicole Kessinger, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about AD once again, in my opinion, being very, very disrespectful. Now, there is a little bit of a story here before I go any further, for those that you may not have heard how I feel about this particular subject. But basically, just after speaking about the photo last night, Armchair Detective then went on to briefly speak about CW making friends with another certain murderer. I'm not going to mention the murderer's name because I don't want to give any killer any airtime or any kind of recognition, if you like, if that's the best word of choice. It might not be the best word of choice, but you know what I'm saying. So I won't be mentioning that person's name, but I'm sure you'll all be very well aware of the case. So if you are a true crime fan, a true crime junkie, then you will have heard, I'm sure, of the Jayme Closs case. So that person that murdered Jamie's family is the person who Chris Watts made friends with whilst he was in Dodge Correctional. That other killer has now been moved to a different prison. He's now locked up in a prison in New Mexico. Anyway, that's far too much information. I've already spent talking about that person there. So whilst AD was talking about CW making this new friend, of course, he touched on the reason that that killer was in prison. And it was, of course, the Jayme Closs case. Now, Jayme Closs and her parents, James and Denise, were the victims of the case. And AD continually got her name wrong. Her name is Jayme. Now, I will explain why I have an issue with this, because it's important that you know. Now, some of you may have heard this story of mine before, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to hear it again for those of you who haven't, because I don't feel I'm being overly sensitive. Some of you may disagree. You may think I'm making a big deal out of nothing, but Jayme, along with her parents, was a victim and she deserves respect. Okay, and getting her name wrong, I believe, is extremely disrespectful. Okay, so the reason I have an issue is last year when AD was still doing his videos from his cafe, so it's probably about March time last year, he asked his viewers at the time to give him case suggestions, and they did, and he read them out and he wrote them down. One of them was Darlie Routier, who he then proceeded to call Darlene Rooster. I mean, really? Who hasn't ever heard of the Darlie Routier case if they're into true crime? You know, that's my point. If you're into true crime. If you're not, then of course, it's understandable that you may never have heard of her. However, as he got down his list, he got to Kanika Jenkins. Now, he either couldn't read his writing, as he'd written them all down, or he just wasn't aware of her case. Now again, Kanika Jenkins was a very high profile case, wasn't it? So if, as he claims to be, that he was a true crime buff, and he has been for many, many years, why hadn't he heard of the Kanika Jenkins case? That kind of thing just baffles me. So he was reading down his list, Dolly, Scott Peterson, Jodi Arias, Casey Anthony, all the cases that his viewers had suggested. And then when he got to Kanika, he said, "Oh, and the one in the fridge." And I've never forgotten that. And honestly, it was about 18 months ago, and that has stayed with me every day. I felt it was so disrespectful. And then he had the audacity to want an interview with Kanika's mother. He asked one of his spanners if they could reach out to get an interview with Kanika's mother. Now imagine how Kanika's mother or any member of her family would have felt if they had have heard their precious child being referred to as the one in the fridge. So that is why I have an issue with AD getting victims' names wrong. It really was heartbreaking to hear him refer to her like that, and I bet you $10 of his Patreon money that he doesn't even remember saying it. I certainly do. Anyway, I'm just going to play you a couple of clips just to show you, so you can hear rather, how Jayme's name is pronounced correctly. I'd just like to do this to back myself up, because it's one thing me telling you something, but I like to always prove that what I'm telling you is correct, is accurate, okay? So here are just a couple of clips for you to listen to.
The Wisconsin man accused of kidnapping Jayme Closs and then killing the teenager's parents is apparently speaking out from jail.
An explosion of chilling headlines today detailing the brutal kidnapping of 13-year-old Jayme Closs.
911. Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she says her name is Jayme Closs.
Okay, so I'm sorry that the audio quality wasn't the best on those clips, but I did want you just to hear them so that you could hear, as if you needed to know, the correct pronunciation of Jayme's name. So I'm now going to show you AD's disrespectful, totally disrespectful way of pronouncing Jayme's name. Now, I appreciate it's spelt a little differently, Jayme, but that's pronounced Jayme, Jayme, isn't it? And he has done it on more than one occasion, as you will now hear. I do need to warn you that some of the detail he discusses is rather graphic.
So, Killer Chris Watts and Jayme Closs, kidnapper, Jake Peterson, prison friends, read Bible to each other. Paxton's behind bars for kidnapping a 13-year-old Jayme Closs. After a shooting, both her parents were dead in their home. Peterson forced his way into the Closs home October 18 and shot Jane's father, Jayme Closs, in the head. He then forced Jane's mother, Denise Closs, to put tape over Jane's mouth while he taped the girl's arms and ankles together. When Peterson reached his car, he put Jayme in the trunk and drove away. When friends or relatives visited the Gordon home where Jayme was held captive, Patterson made her hide under the bed. Jayme managed to escape 10th of January 19 after spending 88 days hidden in Patterson's home. Well, that's a shocking murder that was, wasn't it?
Yes, so shocking, AD. You're right. It was very, very shocking, but so shocking that you can't even remember her name, how to pronounce her name correctly. honestly, again, I'm absolutely lost for words. I'm sure, of course, he would blame it on his dyslexia, but if you really are a true crime buff, you would know how to pronounce Jayme Closs's name, wouldn't you? Because it was a huge case. Most of us followed it, I'm sure. So he wouldn't need to rely on reading her name, because that's what he was doing. He was reading it from a book that's been written. Now, if you're a true crime junkie and I showed you Jayme's name on screen, I'm sure you would know that her name is pronounced Jayme, wouldn't you? I'm sorry if you feel that I'm being overly sensitive, but I do have my reasons, and I'm totally disgusted because I feel it is extremely disrespectful. That's all I can say, really. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for sharing your time with me once again. I love you lots. I shall speak to you very, very soon. Take good care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye-bye.